Paying your sewer bill helps keep our Great Lake great, but paying that bill can sometimes be difficult. That's why the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District has expanded its cost-saving programs to help customers lower their bills. To see if you qualify, call 216-881-8247 or visit neorsd.org/save. Your sewer district, keeping our Great Lake great.
The Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District presents Clean Water Works, a monthly news magazine and your source for local water, sewer, and stormwater news that affects you and your community. Clean Water Works features the people, projects, and programs that are protecting your health and environment. Your sewer district, keeping our Great Lake great.
Hi, and welcome to this edition of Clean Water Works. I'm Jen Elting.
And I'm Raymond Wheaton. Today we're at the Southerly Wastewater Treatment Plant, the largest of the district's 3 plants and the largest in the state of Ohio.
In today's show, we'll learn about Geographic Information Systems, otherwise known as GIS, and we'll take a look at a green infrastructure project that is beautifying a once polluted neighborhood.
But first, Frank Greenland is going to talk to us about wastewater treatment in another episode of Sewer U.
Hello everyone and welcome to Sewer U, Sewer University. We're going to talk today about the history of sewers and clean water in Northeast Ohio, specifically the greater Cleveland area. I am Frank Greenland. I'm the Director of Watershed Programs. This presentation is available on our website at neorsd.org/seweru. We've spent a lot of time talking about how sewer systems evolved across the greater Cleveland area. Now I want to shift to what I call Wastewater Treatment Plant 101. We've collected sewage. Now we're bringing that sewage to a treatment plant. And our job is to clean that sewage up to make it safe for the aquatic community and safe for you and I in terms of recreation. So we're going to do a little talking about what treatment plants do and what that process is. And again, the treatment plants were constructed in the 20s and 30s across Northeast Ohio. And in those days, the regulations were nowhere near as stringent as they are today. And these systems have evolved, and we're in another phase of advancement at these treatment plants to make them a little more sophisticated. But the process is very simple, actually. When you bring sewage into a treatment plant, remember, we're bringing them in big-time interceptors, very large tunnels, very large pipes, some of them in excess of 10 feet on the sewer side, and the tunnels are 24 feet in diameter in some locations. There's a lot of junk can get into a sewer system. So preliminary treatment is the process at the front end of the plant to make sure the heavy-duty stuff, and I'm talking rocks and trees and litter, that large-scale litter, believe it or not, can get into the system. It can wash off the street and get in. Sometimes people dump things into sewers, mattresses, whatever. So we've got to make sure that that heavy-duty material does not get through the treatment plant. That's what preliminary treatment is, and we'll show you a graphic. Primary treatment is the next step. And essentially, primary treatment is swimming pools that slow the water down and allow the solids that are in the flow stream to settle. Those that will settle pretty quickly settle out in primary treatment. Secondary treatment is a process where we use bugs, microorganisms. And microorganisms like to chew on organic pollutants, and they do that for food. So their job is to remove the gross contamination by feeding on organic pollution, and they too settle out in swimming pools. And at the back end of the plant, we want to make sure that the bacteria levels are low enough to support recreational activities. So disinfection, we use a bleach type compound to make sure we kill off the E. coli before it gets to the receiving stream. So again, the 3 treatment plants. The one to the left, westerly, is a slightly different process. It's called Trickling Filters, and I'll show you a little graphic of that. The other 2, southerly and easterly, use what we call activated sludge, and it's a mixture of bugs and wastewater with a lot of oxygen. Again, these plants treat a lot. Most of this flow is wet weather flow. You get a lot of spikes of wet weather, but southerly is up towards 40 to 45 billion gallons a year. That's a lot of flow that gets treated in these treatment plants. But these treatment plants are award-winning treatment plants. Rarely is there a permit violation. Sometimes for years, nothing. And we are regulated with a number of chemical constituents that we have to meet. So these plants are extremely good at doing what they do. These are the processes at a treatment plant. I'll show you slides on each. Preliminary treatment, primary, secondary disinfection. I also threw in solids handling. And that's a big, expensive process. And when any of these steps generate solids, they drop to the bottom, or the heavy stuff gets scraped off a screen. So you have to process not just liquid, you have to process solids. And we'll show how that happens. This graphic is extremely busy. All I want to show is the grayish, the light blue or grayish flow streams. That's what we call the wet stream at a treatment plant. So the wastewater is flowing through different tanks, preliminary treatment, primary, secondary, disinfection, and out. All the orange and red is the solids flow stream. Each tank, stuff settles to the bottom, and you have to remove those solids and eventually deal with them. Truck them off to a landfill, incinerate like we do. So the solids flow stream is a very complicated process at a treatment plant, but it's just as important as the wet stream. This is preliminary treatment. This is a bar rack. This is a scraping mechanism. And so what's happening here is wastewater is flowing through a bar rack. And the bars, I don't know what the spacing is today. Let's say it's an inch apart. Wastewater's flowing. There's vertical bars. And those bars are there to, if there's a tree coming down the pipe, they get it here. Because anything big that could get past this point will plug pumps, mess with equipment, damage equipment. So we've got to take care of it right in the front end. So that's a big, so the rags and junk we collect at the head of the plant are removed in preliminary treatment. These are mechanically clean. Back in the day, they were not mechanically clean. They were cleaned with individuals with rakes. And this stuff smells. I mean, this is bad stuff. So not a fun job, but we mechanically clean, the skimmings go into hoppers, and they're disposed of at a landfill. The other part in preliminary treatment is what we call grit. We need to deal with grit. So grit, in its simplest form, is coffee grinds. Coffee grinds are pretty gritty, right? And they sail through the wet stream and settle out. Since they're so gritty, or street runoff, all the little rocks and pebbles in a street, or eggshells, or anything like that, that can be sharp and abrasive, we need to get rid of them in preliminary treatment through what we call aerated grit channels here, and allow that grit to settle out. If we don't, because they're so gritty, they'll start to erode pipes, and they'll tear up pumps, and they'll degrade metal, and over time your pipes will burst, or your pumps will wear away. So we don't want that. So we use what's called aerated grit. This is an aerated grit channel where we put some air in, allow the flow stream to tumble. You want to clean up that grit. You want to make sure you get rid of stuff. We allow the grit to settle and we remove it. So that's what grit looks like. Now, to me, that looks like coffee grounds. But it's a lot of that and a lot more. We've got to get rid of this in preliminary treatment. This is primary treatment. Now, primary treatment at wastewater treatment plants, the tank configurations are all different. These are large rectangular tanks, and what we're doing here is slowing the flow down. This is sewage coming from your home or stormwater in a combined sewer area. We're slowing the flow down in these tanks and allowing the solids that will readily settle to the bottom to do so. So we need hours and hours of what we call detention time through these tanks to make sure the velocity is very slow, solids go to the bottom, the cleaner water pours over the top, and you can see the treated primary tank water flowing over the top weirs. Secondary treatment is a couple-step process, and I said microorganisms are used to chew on organic compounds and other pollutants. So there's a whole host of different types of microorganisms in the flow stream. They like the polluted wastewater. They like that as food. And what they'll do is eat that food, which reduces pollutant levels. They'll reproduce, which creates more bugs. Some of the bugs die. They have to settle. So it's a balancing act of bugs and wastewater to make sure the right combination is there so that you reduce the pollutant levels but don't create too many solids. Secondary treatment in an activated sludge where you're mixing bugs, wastewater, and oxygen, needs a lot of oxygen. So heavy-duty blowers at the plant to make sure we're supplying enough oxygen to keep a healthy bug community. And then we use the same types of clarifiers. Now these are southerly, and these are circular clarifiers. Same thing, we're slowing the water down to allow pollutants that will settle, dead bugs that will settle, get all the solids out. And really we're at a stage here where the water has essentially been treated. So we've gotten the solids down to whatever the EPA levels are, chemical constituents, metals, organic compounds, everything. So that's secondary treatment. The very end of the process, though, in the recreation season, we need to disinfect. So what these tanks are disinfection tanks. Chlorine's applied at the front where the water's coming in, and it's bleach, sodium hypochlorite. And the bleach, with mixing and time, kills off microorganisms. And E. coli is the indicator organism. And we have a level of E. coli that we've got to be under to protect recreation uses of the water body. And so it's a combination of bleach, and then at the tail end another chemical is used to make sure that any excess chlorine that still exists, because chlorine is a very toxic compound to aquatic organisms, is removed. And we do a great job at this as well. Each plant has it.
The grit, floatable sludge, what do you do with them? Do you have contractors come in?
Okay, good
What
question.
is done with the extra?
Grit and floatable materials, the skimmings and grit at the head end are trucked away, and they go to an approved landfill. The other solids, the stuff that sits at the bottom of the primary tank and the bottom of the secondary tank, and you'll see a slide, we incinerate, we collect. We have a process to continually get rid of as much water in those solids, because water is expensive. If you're going to truck it, you're going to pay for a lot of water. You want to pay for a lot of solids. So we got to get rid of the water. Now we use incineration, so you don't want to insert solids in an incinerator that's wet. So we have a process of getting the water out of those solids, and then we feed the solids to the incinerators where we burn them up, basically. Now there's ash that's created. That has to be removed and go somewhere. And for a while we've been storing with some available land at Southerly, and eventually I think we're going to have to truck that off as well. But you've taken a massive volume of solids and through incineration, made it a very small quantity. Now incineration has some air pollution implications, and our new incinerator has got state-of-the-art, scrubbers and what have you, to make sure we're not creating an air pollution problem as well. So we talked about solids handling. So these are things that are drawing solids off the bottom of these tanks. We've got to get the water out. We use incineration. So once we get enough water out of the solids, they're constantly fed or intermittently fed to our multiple hearth incinerators. And these are very high temperature, and they use those solids as fuel. And if you can get the right balance, what they call autogenous, they'll self-burn. And you can shut the gas off and they keep burning. This is our new renewable energy facility at Southerly. It's a $150 million facility, I believe. But that's how the district has chosen to manage solids. And in fact, we, through a force main, we pump solids from our easterly plant to Southerly to be incinerated. Westerly has its own setup and its own incineration complex. So this is what we've chosen. There are other options. You can land apply if the solids pollutant concentration's low. You could landfill, but landfilling is expensive, and landfill space is diminishing. So we've chosen incineration. That's Sewer University.
"2019 will mark 50 years of progress since the most famous of fires on the Cuyahoga River. On June 22, 1969, a spark set ablaze a blackened coat of oily pollution floating on the Cuyahoga. It was not the first fire. The Cuyahoga had blazed more than a dozen times prior, but this time the response was different, and it changed the country's future. In the late 1960s, Cleveland's industrial prosperity had resulted in environmental neglect. Not enough was done to adequately treat wastewater in our booming industrial city,
and there were no industrial discharge regulations. The 1969 fire thrust Cleveland into the national spotlight. Cleveland Mayor Carl Stokes, a longtime advocate for environmental responsibility, criticized the federal government and vowed to fight for a cleaner river. Time magazine detailed Stokes' fury in an article about the river's burning. In 1970, a groundbreaking piece of environmental legislation, the National Environmental Policy Act, helped to establish the Environmental Protection Agency. In 1972, Congress passed the Federal Water Pollution Control Amendments, which would become the Clean Water Act of 1977. It was in this national context that the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District was created. The district took responsibility for the wastewater treatment needs of Greater Cleveland, including clamping down on industrial discharges into the lake and river. Once declared dead by national media, the Cuyahoga River now boasts more than 60 different species of fish and has been found to be a home of freshwater mussels.
And now we're going to visit one of our sewer district construction sites and learn how we are transforming a polluted former scrapyard into a park space.
My name is Brian Doherty. I'm a construction supervisor here at the district. We are currently at Woodland Central, located around Kinsman and Grand in Cleveland. We have about 6 acres here. The Kingsbury Creek used to run through this site. Used to be an industrial fill and then turned into a junkyard. During the basin excavation, we found approximately 100 tons of solid waste, between 7,000 and 9,000 tires. Essentially, anytime we dug in this project, we found a tire. Now we're going to turn this into a green infrastructure project, which will collect the stormwater from up in the neighborhood in Kinsman and off of Woodland, and will come down here and then go into our stormwater system, which will be discharged into the river. Around end of March, we'll begin planting trees and landscaping. It's going to be a lot more stuff going on here. It's pretty barren right now, but it's going to look like real nice. We'll have walking trails, paths, landscaping. The benefit of this project is we're going to offload stormwater before it enters into our collection system. So as part of that consent decree, we're required through all our green infrastructure projects to reduce that by 44 million gallons. It's going to be really nice when we're all wrapped up.
I love my dog, and she loves to play outside. When we're in the yard or taking walks, she poops. No, not in the toilet. On the grass. That's what dogs do. But we remember to pick it up so the yucky germs stay out of the water.
When it rains, water flows right back to our rivers and streams. Picking up after your pet helps keep our water clean. Learn more at wheredoesitgo.org/pup.
Dogs can't flush. Remember to pup.
Hi, I'm here today with Jessica Cotton, a GIS technician at the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District. Welcome to the show, Jessica.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Great. So I know everyone is dying to know, so what does a GIS technician do? And what does GIS stand for those who don't know?
So GIS stands for Geographical Information System. It's basically a framework of gathering, managing, and analyzing that information. Here at the district, we used it in several projects. When I first started almost 7 years ago, it was basically a handful of projects. Now it's a thought and project planning. How can we use GIS in the district? So we're able to take that paper spreadsheet information and create more detail and in-depth insight into the data and make some better business decisions on that.
So what is some of the data that we collect at the sewer district?
So some of the data that we collect is basically we're wastewater, so we have our wastewater and stormwater infrastructure. So with that data, we have a fantastic GIS team that maintains that data. Data from manholes, pipes, what type of flow, what kind of pipes, what condition the pipes are in, so we can get our crews out there to, investigate that and everything like that. Some of the other projects that we use is the regional stormwater management program. Here, what we do as a GIS team, we maintain a database of hard surface, which we call impervious area. And with that, we're able to accurately calculate customers' fees with the stormwater program.
And I see you have an iPad here today.
Yes.
So is that something that our crews use when they're out in the field?
Right. So it's not just the iPad. They can use any smart device. So anywhere from a cell phone to iPad, what they can do is they just click on their projects and they can go ahead and collect data. Also, what we have is reference polygons of drawings. So what that instead of crews going back and forth from the field to the office to save some time, they can click on a reference polygon and open up a drawing and go ahead and analyze the information from real-time in the field data to what's on the drawing, and then make some decisions based off that.
Very cool. So is there GIS that our customers can access from their smart device or from their laptop at home?
Yes, so we have for the stormwater, regional stormwater management program, we have what we call a fee finder. They are able to look at what impervious surface that we captured on their property and see what their fee is on that.
Great. And I know that there is a big symposium coming up later this year. Could you tell us a little bit about that? So
what we're doing is we're hosting a GIS symposium May 8th through 9th. It's a 2-day event. Ohio Urissa will be hosting the first day, which is May 8th at the county building. And this is nothing but GIS workshop, very technical GIS workshop. With the second day, our theme is health and safety. And we are hosting the symposium at the convention center. And that will be an all-day event with many people using GIS that you might not think using with the health and safety theme.
There's definitely GIS touches every employee at the district
in
some way, shape, or form.
Absolutely.
And it sounds great. You guys do an amazing job.
Thank you.
Over at our main building. So look forward to the symposium.
Yes.
It's going to be a great time. And thank you so much for having us.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Clean Water Works.
We'll see you next time as we continue to celebrate a river reborn, commemorating the 50th anniversary of the infamous Cuyahoga River fire.